want to introduce you to um, my audience as my coach and as my friend. You have not only walked with me here in Los Angeles at the Macedonia Church, but you have certainly walked with me in Fresno at the St. Rest Church. And other than Jesus Christ and my mother, most of what I am, I owe it to you. That is all the good stuff. Welcome, Doc. Thanks for joining me today.
Man, oh man, you should have just saved this for the end. You are starting very, very high. Uh, I appreciate you. I remember meeting you for the very first time, and even right now, you're a great leader. You've got a great heart. You are passionate about what you do. You have clarity of thought. You're a great strategic thinker. So it's an honor and a delight to really work with you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I am still just kind of basking in the overflow of our time over in Puerto Rico. 24 to 36 hours of just strategic leadership capacity building, and out of that conversation came a new periodical that you are putting out, a new journal called Avail. It's on leadership. I want everybody to see it. And if you would just go to availjournal.com, you can get this for free. And there's not much out there anymore for free. But Dr. Chan is certainly doing a great work, and he is making it available. He is what you call a legacy leader. He's leaving a legacy.
Well, thank you so very much. Yes, that magazine is called Avail. It's an Avail journal, almost 100 pages of 5-color, great articles. It is a leadership on steroids, and it will be a real blessing to you. And the price is right. It's simply free for the first year. So just feel free to do that. Anytime that you can, just go to availjournal.com. And your first year is free. You'll get 4 of those issues every quarter, about 100 pages. So, and the way we created the magazine is you will not throw that away. I can guarantee you that. You will throw a lot of other stuff away, but you will not throw this magazine away. So thank you so much for bringing that up.
Yeah. Doc, listen, I want to certainly be a good steward of our time together. We have found ourselves in unprecedented times. The church is in a place that the church has never been before, or particularly in my lifetime, and maybe in your lifetime. And you know pastors who lead huge churches, as I do, but most of my friends are pastors who are pastoring anywhere from 100 to 500 members. And I thought that as you are helping me to navigate through this season, that I thought allowing folk to eavesdrop on our conversation perhaps could be helpful for them, particularly as cities and state governments are beginning to open back up. I thought that we should talk about not reopening the church, but relaunching the church. It's a wonderful opportunity to do something new and to do something different and to do something exciting. And so I thought that we'd have that conversation if you are so inclined.
I'm happy to do that. And, people are calling it many different things, going back to relaunch. So everyone got their own vocabulary, and I like your vocabulary of relaunch. My vocabulary, the word that I'm using is rechurch. And rechurch simply says the same thing you are saying, but there's a re in front of it. And re always means again. And so whatever is going to be again. And what that again looks like, we can talk about that today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so listen, out of crises always comes opportunity. Dr. Claiborne Lee Jr. used to tell me often that you become the pastor of any church either out of crises or out of conquest. And we are certainly in a season of crises. Let's talk about the opportunities of the day. As we're in this crisis, talk a little bit about what you see as opportunities.
Yeah, so every adversity has advantages. Every adversity has advantages, but the challenge is your opportunities have to be positioned at the right place in that journey. So I want to give you 5 words to think about, because otherwise, if you're not careful, your conversation will become circular. You'll have more questions. You can have a lot of questions, but those questions have to land somewhere to make a difference in somebody's life. So I want to give you something Velcro, something sticky, something that have traction in it. So let me give you those 5 words and just briefly maybe talk about maybe 30 seconds on each one of them. So let me give you all 5 together, and then we'll talk about each one 30 seconds. The first one is pivot, Pivot, pivot. Number 2 is prepare. Number 3 is plan. Number 4 is pause. And number 5 is proceed. Pivot, prepare, plan, pause, proceed.
Yeah,
So that just gives you vocabulary, because in these times, opportunities are going to come to those who can think of it in ways that create Velcro quality to it. So let's talk about each one of them. Pivot. Pivot is when you make a turn, a right turn immediately. Give you an example from an airport. Most of us have not been in an airport in weeks now. You know, I used to be in the airport every other day, but life has changed for everybody. And so what happens is you are at gate number 3. You are at gate 3 waiting for your flight, and the announcement comes on that your flight is now leaving out of gate 17.
yeah,
You were at gate 3, now going to leave at outer gate 17. You don't ask questions, you might sigh a little bit, but you pick up your suitcase and you head to 17 along with everybody else. So you pivot. Pivot means your choices are not yours, your options are not yours, your alternatives are not yours. You just have to make that right turn. And I have seen churches make amazing pivots in the last few weeks that they have resisted for years and years and years. I know pastors who used to rail against and preach against online church.
yeah,
Well, how's it working out for you now? The pastors used to talk about multi-site. No, you got to be here. But now every church is multi-site, because every family that's watching you is a multi-site location. Pastors just said things like, well, you know how we are. We've got to be here to feel the presence, and we know our praise and worship. You got to just feel it. Well, all those have pivoted. So that is number 1. Number 2 is preparation. Number 3 is planning. I'm going to come back to that. Let me go to number 4 and 5. Number 4 is where you are paused. Right now, that's how it is, at least in the United States of America. Everybody's paused. Now, in my work that I do, that Pastor Shane Scott has already told you, I get to travel all over the world, and I am on the phone on a regular basis with mega church leaders and medium church leaders and small church leaders all over the world. And I can tell you everybody's on pause. And we're going to talk about that a little bit again. There's no need to be rushing out there. Just relax. Just be paused about this. And then there'll be a proceed. A proceed will be cautious, but it will be a proceed. Let me go back to preparation and planning, Pastor Scott. So preparation is different from planning. Planning is, for example, if you ask me, Sam, how long did it take you to plan what we're going to talk about today? I would say, probably it took me 2.5 hours to plan. And you ask me, so how long did it take you to prepare for today? About 45 years.
yeah, yeah,
That's the difference. So if you're a preacher, if you're a communicator, you're watching me right now. I say, Pastor Shane Scott, so you preached a great message last Sunday. A lot of people watched you. A lot of people were blessed by you. So how long did it take you to plan it? You say maybe 6 hours, 8 hours, maybe 10 hours, depending on the complexity of the message. And I said to you, so how long did it take you to prepare? 20 years, 25 years, 30 years.
yeah,
So that's the difference in planning and preparation. And so the churches that are doing well right now have been preparing all along. So planning is tactical, preparation is strategic. Let me give you one more example that I think will make more sense for you even in this conversation. If I was to open your suitcase, I met up with you in the airport and I opened your suitcase. If in the suitcase I find a t-shirt, flip-flops and shorts, I know you, I don't know where you're going, but I know you're going to a warm climate place because your preparation in your suitcase tells me where you're going. Or I open your suitcase and I see a heavy hat and a scarf, muffler, gloves, big hat, big jacket. That tells me I may not know the exact destination, but I do know that you're going somewhere where it is cold.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Because what's in your suitcase tells me where you're going, because you don't pack your suitcase for where you've been, you don't pack your suitcase for where you are, you always pack your suitcase for where you're going. So right now, while we are on pause, we have to think about what are we preparing, not necessarily planning. Because a lot of people are asking questions like, so what will the church look like? And that's a fair question, a valid question. I'm happy to answer that, but at the end of the day, nobody really knows that. The question is, what are you, how are you preparing? Let me give you one more example because this is an important point. I bring you chicken, raw chicken. Now, I don't know if you're planning to barbecue it, bake it, fry it, curry it, saute it, Korean it, Thai it. I don't know what you're going to do with it. You're going to make chicken parm out of it. I don't know what you're going to do. That's the planning component of it. Preparation says we have the raw material right here.
yeah.
So what my question for us is, before I move on from here, is what are you packing right now? How are you preparing your mind? How are you preparing your processes? How are you preparing your decision making? How are you preparing your leaders? How are you preparing your team? So the opportunities for us are amazing if you're prepared, because opportunities come to those who are prepared.
Prepared. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that those who are making this pivot are those who are prepared. And if we are not prepared, we are certainly going to get left out. I tell people all over the country, there are some churches that will successfully reemerge, and then there are some that won't. And those that won't is going to be because they certainly lack the preparation. Yeah. Talk a little bit of, so you've talked about this whole preparation and planning, which is what stood out for me. Mobilizing teams. Macedonia is 111 years old. They have certainly been an incredible congregation through this season, in ways that have inspired me and pushed me, because they are getting, in the last 4.5 weeks, what I've been talking about over the last 8 years. But talk a little bit about mobilizing teams.
So two things are happening. That's a great question. Two things are happening with your leadership right now. You're finding two things. Number one, people that were in leadership, many of them are obsolete now. They just could not rise to the occasion. They're not bringing any solutions. They have no new ideas. The sky is falling. It is curl up and die. What are we going to do? What's happening? But I want you to focus more on a new group of leaders that is emerging. People that were not even on your radar are now emerging. People that you never thought of as leaders and team in your, or part of your team at your church, are rising. So new leaders are rising, and almost all new leaders percolate during times of crisis. So what happens is that as a pastor, if you're not careful, you will start getting disappointed about the people that you thought could make it happen for you and are not making it happen for you, can't make it happen for you. But you can't do much about that. But what you can do is to say to yourself, who are the new leaders that are percolating? Let me pay attention to them. And the new leaders are the ones who are going to carry you into the future.
Yeah. Yeah.
So keep your eyes on the new leaders. So when you see new leaders, you do three things with them. You do three things with them. I'm a list guy. I like to make things easy for people and portable, so that when we get off this call, and you get the recording of this call, or you watch it again in some context, at least you will have some things to talk about. Three things. You discover, develop, deploy. Discover, develop, deploy. Discover, develop, deploy. So discovery is taking place. This is the time, going back to preparation, this is the time to develop your leadership. Develop them in vision, in mission, in core values, in your culture, in the reason you exist, in how you think and how you do things. So this may not be a time to go wide, but it's definitely a time to go deep.
Yes.
So discover, develop, so that when the time comes, you can, when you relaunch, when you rechurch, you can deploy them. So keep your eyes on the new leaders that are emerging in your team,
And,
because I can tell you there's a dissonance going on right now. Think about this way. Think about this way. People that were not in the decision-making room are now in the decision-making room. Remember, your media, your graphics, your camera people, your light people, however you had it, they used to be down here and you made decisions in this room somewhere, and then you came down here and told them what you wanted them to do.
yeah.
That's all changed now. Now these people are in the decision-making room,
Right.
and they're helping you make decisions. So keep your eyes on the new leaders that are emerging, because many of them are going to be obsolete. Don't deal with that right now. There'll be a time for that. There'll be a time for that. Right now, just pour yourself into the new team that is forming, because it's going to be the new team that's going to take you to the future.
Yeah. And with so much time on our hands, I want to recommend to those who are watching Dr. Chan's book, Who's Holding Your Ladder? It is a wonderful starting point as you are trying to develop new leaders. So Who's Holding Your Ladder? Get it for your teams. It's a great investment. It's an easy read, and it will certainly help you to develop leaders moving forward. Dr. Chan, so bodies, buildings, budgets, the church. Let's go here before we go there. Talk a little bit about virtual membership and how we maximize. I was on Facebook. Good friend out of Oakland raised a question a couple days ago. Is there a manual for managing virtual membership? And so, how do we grow the church in this season?
Churches have always had virtual members. And when you ask about a manual, that simply means that people kind of know where all this is going. Now, there are a number of churches that have had online churches, the actual online church with an online pastor, so that when you are preaching and people are watching it online, be it whatever platform they might be, so this online pastor is back there chatting with people, talking with people, praying with people, following up with people, making sure that they're receiving pastoral care. So I know of a number of churches that have had online church. I mean, an online church all by itself. I know of a church, and I'm not giving you names because I haven't checked with them how much they want to know about, but because I'm a consultant, I know the inside part of it. So without giving names, I know of a church that has an online church that has its own 501c3. And has its own staff, has its own budget, has its own programs. So there are many churches that have been doing that. The question is not so much about how do we handle them, because they are virtual members, so we cannot impose on them what our in-person members do. However, virtual members are there because they like you, they appreciate you, they like what you're doing, they are part of your vision, they believe in you, and they believe in you because they are supporting you financially, and they are helping you out in the projects that you do. They respond back to you. Level of engagement is higher. So what you're going to find out when this thing starts settling down is that you will have all kinds of members, and you're going to have virtual members who will be just like your regular members who will come and go. So the virtual part of it is going to be not something you're going to manage, you're going to lead that. So let me say it again, you will not manage the virtual part of it, you will lead the virtual part of it. And leadership simply means engagement. Leadership means growing your influence. Leadership means resourcing them. Leadership means disseminating pastoral care. Leadership in this case is not going to be, this is what you're going to do for us, this is what we're going to do for you. And when reciprocity starts happening, a two-way street starts happening, then people can really engage with each other. But virtual church is here to stay.
It's here to stay. It's here to stay. There was an article in Sojourners magazine, Jim Wallace, who a couple years ago, he suggested that every 500 or so years, there's a cultural shifting in the church. And I think that we may be within that time frame where we are culturally shifting. What was will no longer be as it was. So, with that said, buildings and budgets, how do we maximize our buildings that are now empty? And when we go back, the same functions perhaps won't be what we use the buildings for. Perhaps we won't be using them in the same fashion. Even I am beginning to think about, and this could be a sacred cow for Macedonia, but I'm beginning to think about getting rid of our pews and moving to a more chair-like setting, auditorium. Talk a little bit about, how do we maximize buildings and as a result, budgets?
So I think the way that I would like to answer that question, Pastor Shane, is to give you a question and everybody watching me a question to think about. Here's the question. Knowing what you know now and having experienced all these shifts, if you could take those learnings, those experiences, that ethos, back 6 months ago to your church, what would you have done differently back then? I think that is the question. Because once you answer that question, you take the present learnings, superimpose them on your past experience, that will give you the trajectory into your future.
Yeah.
And so you're asking, so what do we do, all the way from pews to chairs? So you start asking yourself, which is easier to clean, which church is easier to fog? How can we do social distancing more easily? What DNA is already residing in our church pews? I don't even want to talk about that.
Yeah.
So because people have been sitting and doing all kinds of stuff on the church pews for all this time. The whole idea is we know a whole lot more than we knew then. But it goes back to even people. If the people, okay, what crisis does is crisis does not create anything. Crisis reveals more of what you already had.
Yes.
Let me say it again. Crisis does not reveal anything. Crisis does not create anything. Sorry. Crisis only reveals more of what you already had. So if you had dysfunction back there, you're seeing more of that here. If you had health back there, you're seeing more of health over here. So those are the kind of questions that people have to ask themselves. Knowing what I know now, what should I have done different? What could I have done different? Why didn't I do that? And back to your first question, what opportunities do I have to make those corrections now going forward? And that will answer your building question, your budget question, your bodies question. Let's talk about budget for a minute. I mean, where were we spending money? Where were we not spending money? How are we raising money? How are we engaging with people? How are we asking for it? How are we reporting on it? Were we telling stories about where the money was actually going? Churches that are growing right now, especially with money, are not only meeting the needs of the community outside, but they are good at telling that story. So that our people know I gave money and it was not just to maintain the church, but it actually helped the community, helped the people. It gave them food and shelter and clothes and medical care and all that the people are needing in this time. So it's the whole idea of how did we present the vision, and how did people respond, and how did we respond to their response? And I think those are the kind of things. How are we saying thank you? How are we keeping up with them? So those are that's the question. Let me repeat that one more time. Knowing what we know now, knowing the experiences we've had now, taking those, thinking about how we could have done something, should have done something 6 months ago, and how can we take those learnings and project ourselves into the future.
Incredible. Thank you. Thank you. You know, Doc, I have the privilege of being on the best coast. California is certainly great place, great weather. It is 80 degrees here today. I think that, and no pun intended, but I think that our Mayor Garcetti, and our Governor Newsom has done a great job at managing this crisis. But what they don't know is they don't know the church. I think I read somewhere that the governor of Indiana made a comment that we'll see how this virus affects the church, as if the church is some testing ground. We have a new normal. And I, you know, as I've talked with you over the last couple of weeks, you have been consistent and insistent on listening to the authorities as we are creating this new normal, getting guidance from the authorities. Talk about steps or phases to this new normal.
That's a very, very big question. So first of all, I don't know what the governors know. They don't tell us everything they know.
Yep.
There's no doubt you are right that they don't understand the church. What we do know is that most outbreaks that have happened the world over, South Korea, India, Philippines, the world over, most of the things that inflamed this thing in Louisiana and other parts of the world started where people congregated together in large quantities together. So, for example, if I was to go into a store, I won't name any store, but if I was to go into a store, I can keep moving. If you're too close to me, I can move away. If I feel something is threatening me, I can back off. I can leave the store at any time. I'm not stuck anywhere. When you go to church and you think somebody's too close to you, it's awkward to move away. You start feeling some level of threat. I'm not talking about physical threat, but some kind of mental threat or emotional threat. In a store, I can walk away. So when people are comparing a dynamic, movement-oriented location versus a stationary, static setting where you come and sit, where the air is still, when you are around people in a still situation, those are different things. So I want to say to people is I'd much rather, as a leader, err on the side of caution.
Yep.
This is what I know. My people, now let me use you. Your people are still getting the word. Your people are still getting worship. Your people are still getting pastoral care. Your people, the only thing they lack is hugs, personal touch. I'm talking about physical, personal touch that human beings are crave for. We are built for that. Babies are healthier if they're held longer at childbirth. So I understand we are built for that. I get that. But the only thing your church is really lacking right now is that physical proximity and physical touch, which you cannot do right now anyhow. If you open your church, I ain't hugging nobody. Are you?
No.
So all I'm saying is I think somehow we've got to we can disagree with our authorities, but I do think we need to give them a wide berth. Imagine this. You as a pastor, I'm not just talking about you, Pastor Shane Scott, but everyone listening to me, you as a pastor had a difficult enough time and are still challenged with decision making in your context of 100, 200, 300, 400 people. Imagine the complexities of the demographics and the diversity and then the politics of every place. So that's what I want to say to you. Doesn't matter which side of the aisle you're on. You might be in the middle, right, left, right. It doesn't matter to me. What does matter to me is that we honor our authorities. We understand that decision making has been very difficult. It'll continue to be difficult. They are carrying a heavy load. They may not understand that entire context. They may not understand church and how it works. But I just give them a little slack. I'd give them a little benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
And I would say, I'm under authority. The decision I'm going to make is going to affect many, many lives. It's much more than just reopening. It has to do with literally people's lives. And the gravitas of that should give us pause to say, what's the rush? If my people were being deprived of spiritual care, deprived of pastoral care and concern, deprived of opportunities to serve, deprived of worship, that would be a different thing. But I can tell you this, every church watching me right now, your people are not deprived. In fact, your people are getting more pastoral care now, 7 days a week, than they did before this.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely. 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 I think that you are on to something that we have to extend grace, particularly to our leaders, but also breathe, take time, do what you can. It will be okay.
Okay, I'll give you an example from my life and my wife. Both of us are 67. I'm in Georgia. I'm in Atlanta talking to you right now. Our governor has a shelter in place for everyone over 60, 65 till June the 12th. So the church that I attend, if they were to open today, I can tell you right now, I'm not going.
Yeah.
And so the whole notion of that this is something anti-religious or anti-Christian, I could go there if I wanted to, but I don't find reason to do that.
Yeah. And that makes sense. That makes sense. I think, again, there's no rush. There's no rush. And I want to say to those who are listening, this is a wonderful opportunity to pivot, prepare, plan, pause, and then proceed at the appropriate time.
Absolutely.
There's no rush. Doc, I won't hold you much longer. I want to conclude by just talking about an opportunity to reimagine or reimage your current context. So what I know is a 2-hour church service post COVID-19 will not work for Macedonia
or anywhere,
or anywhere, right? And so how do we provide substantive quality worship experience that meets people where they are, meets their needs, but also remain faithful to our tradition?
Well, I know this much. Every church service that is online is shorter. I know that much. I know that every preacher is preaching shorter. I know that much. Church services, the experience itself has made people think, especially in certain traditions who are used to 2-hour services, hour and a half services. I've now discovered we can do very substantial church. Here's what everyone's got to understand. The substance, the core of your church experience has not shifted. The core, the elements of a church service, be it worship, be it giving, be it announcements, be it messaging, altar calls. I mean, the elements, the prayer time, the elements of a church service are still there. So substantively, you have not shifted. But the packaging of that, the delivery of that, the delivery system of that has shifted. So people have found out that we can do substantial church and experiential church and not have to drag it out for eternity.
Yeah.
So I want you to, since this is our last question here, I want to, again, remember my head is in the preparation zone. I think that is where the church needs to be right now. It's somewhere between preparation and pause. So my headspace is there. I'm going to leave you with 3 questions. And then I want to talk about an offer that I have that people cannot refuse. It is whatever you want to pay kind of a deal. So 3 questions I want to leave for every leader, every church, pastor, every deacon, every elder, every trustee, every board member, whatever you call yourself, as a volunteer, department leader, whoever you are. Here are the 3 questions you got to ask yourself during this preparation pause stage. Number 1 is, what can we start? What can we start? I'm talking about start. So a little while ago, if you remember, Pastor Shane Scott talked about a magazine. Guess when the magazine came out? First week of April.
Yeah.
In the middle of all this, we launched a magazine. What can we start? And you know why more people are talking about a Whale Journal? Because no one was expecting a Whale Journal.
Right.
And no one was expecting anything quite like it. So you can start things right now. I want to tell you, there are businesses that are starting things. There are churches that are starting things right now. So the first question is, what can we start? Second question is very intriguing. What can we stop right now? Listen, there are many things in your church that need to get a decent funeral. You just need to honor them, have a wake for it, even have a repast for it, and put it away. Because it was really, really functioning well, efficiently, and meeting needs 10 years ago. But it's not anymore. It's not anymore. So give it a respectful funeral, pull the plug, and ask yourself, what can we stop right now? And number 3 would be, what can we sustain? What can we continue? Because that's an important question. What are you going to continue doing into the future? Because whatever you're going to continue, you're going to say, I'm going to resource it with my attention, with my time, with my money. I'm going to resource it with facilities. I'm going to resource it with people. I'm going to resource it with planning. I'm going to resource it with media. So you're going to do all of those things. So you got to ask those 3 questions. Number 1, what can we start? Number 2, what can we stop? And number 3, what can we sustain?
Yeah. I think that start, stop, sustain really gives a concrete plan for re-imaging or reimagining what the church looks like. Dr. Chan, I'm of the opinion that the church will emerge stronger. That is the church universal. Now there are some places that have a marquee that may not reemerge, but the church universal, I think, will emerge much stronger. Let's conclude here with just some final thoughts on evangelism and discipleship in this season of COVID-19.
So there's no doubt in my mind that churches have greater opportunity to reach their community because the needs in the community are crazy big. Not only does the church have greater opportunities, but the church can make a greater impact. So there was a time before this, if you went out there and gave away clothes and food and shelter and blood tests, It would have been good. It would have been very good. You could have got some media out of that and even helped the community and even gain some members. I get that. That would have been good. But the context right now amplifies everything. So it's not about just what you're doing, but the impact can be greater during this season. So opportunities are greater, impact opportunities are greater. And I agree with you, Pastor Shane. The universal church, the capital C church, is going to be stronger. It's going to be more vibrant. It'll be more on vision. It'll be more on mission. It'll be more outwardly focused than inwardly focused. It will be more about reaching people in the name of Jesus Christ than just simply growing our numbers. It will be more about what can we do with our money outside our doors rather than just doing it on the inside. We'll be more other-minded than we have before.
Yeah.
So the Church of Jesus Christ is going to continue to grow. And he was right when he said, the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. Because he said, on this rock I will build my church. It's not your church. It's not my church. It is his church. And because it is his church, things have happened before. Things will happen again. We've been through all kinds of pestilence before, and the church has survived every one of those. In fact, the church has come out stronger each time simply because it reminds us why we are here. He said, you are the light of the world. He said, you're the salt of the earth. And for that reason, I want to leave you with this thought. Thought is very simple. God in his sovereignty placed you on this planet for such a time as this.
Yeah.
In his sovereignty, he could have placed you on this planet somewhere in the past. He could have placed you somewhere in the future if he's going to tarry his coming. But he trusts you. He has a sovereign mandate in your life. You are born with purpose. You are born with legacy. He trusts you for this moment. And what I want to do is I want to not disappoint my Lord and Savior. I want to rise in this occasion, not curl up under a rock, not try to hide, not try to fight everybody that comes around my way, not that gloom and doom and skies falling. I want to know that Jesus has saved me for a purpose. There's the design on my life. I was born for such a time as this. There's destiny on my life. I want him to put his arm on my shoulder and say, well done.
Yeah.
That's what I'm living for. Because you see, in this moment, either you're going to rise and shine, you're going to support your church, you're going to pray for your pastor, you're going to give more, you're going to go more, you're going to help more people, or you're going to start hoarding and start complaining and murmuring and grumbling.
Yeah.
Don't be like that. This is the time for you to rise up and be who God has called you to be. Oh, I want you to know it's not just great days are ahead for us, but great days are right now. You are alive. You're not worried about the shelter that you're in. You got clothes on your back. You got roof over your head. You're not worried about what you're going to eat next. And if you are, there's got somebody, there's a church that you can call and get help from. What I'm saying to you is, remember, he is still on the throne.
Yes,
and
sir.
We are still his subjects. We're still the citizens of this kingdom. And for that, I am grateful. I'm grateful that he trusts me to place me here. The last thing I want to remind you of in Job chapter 1. Remember, Job had a pandemic of his own.
Yeah.
In one day's time, everything got taken away from him. His whole family got wiped out except for his wife, his children, his grandchildren, all his wealth, everything went, bam, 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 everything was coming his way. And this is what it says. Number one, he worshiped God.
Yeah.
And number two, the scripture says, and he did not blame God in anything.
Yeah.
So this is what I want you to remember. Worshiping God is always right. Blaming God is always wrong. Worshiping God is always right. Blaming God is always wrong. You, my dear friend, have been placed where you are on purpose.
Yeah.
Live life to its fullest and raise other people with you. Pastor Shane Scott, ever since I've known you from all the way from Fresno to now in Los Angeles, that's what you've been doing. You have been raising other people. You've been touching other people's lives. And that is why there's a mandate on your life to keep leading. Macedonia is 111 years old. Isn't it amazing to know that God can give old bones new strength?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you got good bones. If you didn't have good bones, you wouldn't be around for 111 years. In 111 years, literally thousands of churches have come and gone, but Macedonia is still here.
Yeah.
And there's a purpose for that. God knew that, and He has established you and confirmed it for such a time as this. So I just want to encourage everybody to know you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
God is with you. Not because Sam Chan says so, but because God says so.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Dr. I think that as God is with Macedonia, He is with so many other churches that are open in His name. And I wanted to specifically say to those pastors who are pastoring, the 50 member, the 100 member, 500 member church, that you got this. You can do this by the power and by the Spirit of God. And just as Dr. Chan has been my coach and has encouraged me, I want to coach you and encourage you. Now, Dr. Chan has a incredible offer that I wish was available to me some years ago, but it is now available to you. Pastor George, who is working technology for me, man, I tell you, I have incredible friends. Pastor George, can you put up this flyer for me? SamChanLeadership.com is where you want to go. SamChanLeadership.com is where you want to go. And with Dr. Chan, I'll let him talk a little bit about what he is doing. But listen, if you get an opportunity to sit under his coaching, don't die and go to heaven until you do it. Dr. Chan, talk a little bit about what you got going on.
Thank you so very, very much. And the website is samchanleadership.com/COVID, COVID. So I've had a program called the Sam Chan Leadership Institute for many, many years. People subscribe to it from all over the world because it's all online. And people have been retailing that. Our company has been retailing that for $2,000 for the whole year. So during these COVID days, my team and I started asking ourselves, I don't have a church. I don't have church members. I go to church on a regular basis. I attend church, but I don't pastor a church actively. So I have nothing to mobilize like that. I don't have church members, be it 50 or 5,000. I don't have people to mobilize. So what can Sam Chan do? And so I started looking to inventory of everything that was available to me. And instead of asking people to pay $2,000, I have the best price for you. It's whatever you can pay. So what do you get for that? Every month you get a book, one of my books, 12 books from me. So every month you're going to get a book. It's all online. You're going to get a book. You're going to get 4 videos a month that will support and teach on that book. And at the end of 12 months, you'll get a certificate of completion of my leadership program. 12 books, over 50 videos, and then you're going to get a certificate. So imagine for a moment you go to a restaurant and you sit down, they give you the menu, and you see all the items there, but there are no prices. There are no prices there. And you call the waiter and say, hey, there are no prices. How much does it cost? He says, no, don't worry about the prices. Eat whatever you want and pay whatever you want. Eat whatever, pay whatever. That's a good deal. And that's what I'm saying to you. So when you go to samchanleadership.com/COVID, COVID, it's going to ask for 2 things. Your contact information, so we can start sending you stuff. And number 2, how much do you want to pay? No questions asked, no pushback, no negotiating, nothing like that. You put your amount in there and you are set. It's whatever you can pay. And if you're a pastor of a church, what a great time for you to realize there's no money coming out of your budget, no money coming out of the church coffers. You just put that information out to your entire church, not just those who are leaders right now, because remember I said new leaders are percolating. Put it out to your entire church, to give it sent out to all your friends, because it costs you nothing. You make it available to everybody, and everybody just pays whatever they want to pay. No questions asked. Sam Chand, CHAND, D as in David, samchanleadership.com/COVID, and may thousands of people who are watching us right now take advantage of it. And that will be my way of saying, keep raising leaders and how can I help you, and this is how I can help you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, thank you, Doc. Thank you so much for this incredible opportunity to just talk about uh, relaunching the church or re-churching. Uh, Please, sir, please, ma'am, whoever you are that's watching, know that you can get through this. You can make it. Just pivot, prepare, plan, pause, and ultimately proceed. And if you need the help and want the help, please, samchanleadership.com/COVID is the place to go. Doc, thank you again for this time. Thank you for sharing with us, and we certainly look forward to spending some time with you in the days to come.
Thanks to you and Pastor George.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Pastor George, for helping your brother through this technology crises. Thank you, man, for all that you do. All right, love you, Doc. We'll talk soon.
Love you more. Bye bye.
Bye bye.